Shortly after 9/11, I worked for an interfaith organisation actually, and what I found was a lot of solidarity with the other faiths, and I felt like although the Muslim community spoke out and condemned the actions, I felt like, you know, we've built such a good relationship with other faiths that actually we don't necessarily need to justify that wasn't our Islam. And yeah, I found solidarity with other faiths and, you know, felt a stronger sense of belonging, really.
I think we're quite lucky in Leicester that we live in a multicultural and very accepting society, and on the whole, we've not faced many problems and much of a backlash since 9/11. The community here is very supportive. On an individual basis, I have had friends who have been scared to wear their scarves out in public and have taken their scarves off, but those instances have been few and far between.
Just to echo really what Rahima and Sabiha were saying, that, you know, lots of people from other faiths really came forward to show their support in saying that actually we know this is not representative of your faith, this is not what Islam is about, and we want you to know that we are by your side in that. You know, those few people who felt that they might be a little bit anxious stepping outside because they were worried about the backlash they were going to face as a result of the mindless actions of others. You know, really that was because they wanted to disengage themselves from what had happened. They wanted to show they were frightful of, you know, being associated with those people who had carried out those acts. So in all honesty, I would say here in Leicester, you know, there was a great deal of support from lots of people from all different, you know, ends of society.
Increasingly, when people wear the hijab, when people just walk in the streets as normal, and when we, you know, open up ourselves to them and they talk to you, they actually realise they could be potentially good neighbours. You know, it's kind of that fear-monger that's been put out in the press or in the media, which actually probably encourages EDL or non-Muslims as much to think twice about talking to a Muslim. But when they do, they think, actually, you know what, they could be potentially our best friends. And then you'll see that across the schools, you'll see that across cities around the country, across universities. You know, that's the image of Islam that there is, that people from all walks of society, all background, all ages, they do live in harmony, but it's just an isolated group. And for example, 50 people have gone across to, you know, fight for extremist groups. 1.8 million people are Muslims. That is about 0.002% of the impression that people get about Islam. So we're about the other mass majority of Muslims. I mean, it's that portrayal, I think, that needs to come across that will increase the greater understanding.
I don't think they were. For example, I do know from reading on Facebook that Muslims actually acted as a human shield against protecting the non-Muslims who were being targeted. And this was never really represented in the media. We always saw that it was just this one Muslim coming and trying to attack everyone on the beach. And the fact that they don't promote, for example, they could have labelled a headline such as Muslims protecting the non-Muslims. And in essence, we're just as much against these people as much as non-Muslims are. We're all working together to protect a community, protect Britain, like protecting ourselves against them. And I don't think that ever comes across, really.
I don't think it is. I think the majority of the Islamic community would agree with me. The attacks in Tunisia and such like are atrocious attacks. They're not Islamic attacks at all. They're a matter of human rights as well. In the Muslim community, we don't just feel pain when a Muslim gets hurt or attacked. We feel it for the whole community. We should act as one body, really.
I think the issue, once again, it's not just a Muslim's issue. It's for the world. Like, we see someone die the same way as another person sees someone murdered. It's not something different. They'll kill us as well. It's not just because we're Muslim, they won't hurt us. Mosques are being blown up by ISIS. Tombs are being destroyed just because they're Islamic tombs. It's a problem for everyone, not just a specific community.
I wish I had an answer for that. I don't think anybody knows why. It's the network is so large. Nobody understands the network. The two boys that have reportedly gone to Syria, when they were younger, did come to the Obi Mosque. The parents still attend our mosque. But this was radicalisation that didn't happen in this country. It happened abroad. The appeal, we can't understand what the appeal is, whether they have gone for the right reasons for humanitarian needs and then got themselves into a situation that they can't get themselves out to. And that's for not only those two boys, it could be of any of the other boys. We don't know if some of the propaganda videos you see coming out, how do we know there isn't somebody standing behind the camera with a gun pointed towards them, making them say these things to attract other individuals as well. So we need to understand how it's working, and I don't think we do. For the wrong reasons, that's one of the causes. It's not the Islamic faith is definitely, that's what not they're not fighting for that. If what we here are fighting for the right reasons, which is the peace, which is the unity. The organisation have no respect for any religion. They go around killing Muslims. They go around killing children. They go around breaking mosques, tombs. What religion promotes that?
I don't think there is. One of the difficulties, particularly with extremism in the name of Islam, is that we're such a global community. Everyone's really connected around the world. So we could be having managed efforts here, but we can't actually control what's happening in another part of the world. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, especially for government, how to kind of monitor it and keep that going. For Muslim communities, I think, we're already doing everything we can, trying to be extra vigilant and, protecting the mosques and the reputation of the mosques. And at an individual level, I think, more and more it's becoming apparent that each individual, especially Muslims, are taking it on themselves to portray Islam in the way that they would like it to be represented, and that's sort of through engagement through wider community, and even if it's going to the bank and presenting yourself in a certain manner, all of those things in the hope that that encounter will promote a positive image of the faith.
I'm actually scared to say, yeah, they should, because the reality of it is, how easy can it be to monitor when a child is on the internet? My children are young, and I struggle just to monitor sort of how much time they have on their game consoles. And when my youngest daughter, who's 12, she's got her phone, which she's on WhatsApp. I struggle just to monitor with those things. And if they were to have access to internet all the while when they're away from home, studying at university, I think that would be really difficult. While they're at home, while my children are growing up, we make it, we made it very clear that they have to have set times when they're using their gadgets and so on. When it comes to the internet, we have that in front of us. Downstairs is, central room where we've got an overview of what they're on and so on, and you've got the parental control as well. But that stops at a certain point when they leave home. And when these young people are out at college, university, that freedom is there for them to use as they will.
I do. I'm quite strict with them. Like someone says, we've got our main computer in the living room so that whenever they're on the computer, I can monitor what they're doing. But even when you're doing that, how can you monitor everything that they do? And I think the main thing that I as a parent certainly do is make sure that I bring them up with the correct values. And that's the only thing that I can rely on, that I have brought my children up to know the difference between right and wrong, to know what ideology we follow, the correct form of Islam. And I think I could put my hand on my heart and say my boys would be safe from being radicalised because we bring them to the mosque and we come with them. We know where they are all the time, and I think that's important, and that plays a part of it. Yes, you need to monitor what they're doing online, but you need to instill the values in them beforehand so that they know how to use it correctly, so that they don't go on those sites in the first place.
Well, as people are growing up in today's society, we're used to violent games such as Call of Duty. Little kids from 8 years old are playing this game despite the age restrictions and limits, and this sort of desensitizes the concept of actually killing another person. And people like ISIS and other terrorist groups, they feed on this desensitization and they create posters to agree with this. I saw an example that was like, are you ready for your Call of Duty, or something along those lines. It's selling it as a sort of extension to a game, like 3D graphics, and that's why loads of people are going. They use our language, and if people aren't really related to that often, then they feel like someone is actually on their side and with them, and then that's how the radicalization process occurs.
I don't think I'm shocked, like whether you're a male or a female, at the end of the day you're exposed to the same material as anyone else. So when they put out these propaganda videos promoting people to come over to Syria or Turkey or wherever, women are just as susceptible to this as anyone. I think also what they try to entice women in terms of women ultimately can provide maybe a different they can provide something different in them. So maybe like medical students might want to go over in order to help in humanitarian issues. So that's sometimes a reason why a lot of women might want to go over. What they try to promote and what they expose to women, like what it could be like, is not actually the reality, I'm sure. I mean, I think what ISIS try to do is create fear, and they try to entice people over, and once they're there, I think they're almost caught up in a vicious cycle, and it's very difficult to escape that, and they're almost scared to come back, I feel, because here in Britain we create a really negative image of the reason why they've gone over, and maybe like we might not always understand why they've gone over. It could just be a lack of communication and misinterpretation. But the fact that they're so scared to come back, I think that's something which is quite sad.
Radicalisation doesn't happen in our madrasas and our schools. Madrasas are very simply they're like any ordinary school, but for Muslim students. So Muslims would come, and there'll be mixed groups from a small age, from little as 4. And what we do is we teach them Islamic values. We'll teach them the history about Islam. We teach them the basics about how to pray. We also have like interfaith activities. So some madrasas will have football tournaments with people that aren't Muslim, just to interact with other people. And we'll have games with them. We'll have colouring books. Just to engage the youth really. So it's not a form of radicalisation.
There is a problem with military action. Some will say that this is such a big issue in society that they don't believe any Western values, Islamic values, and that they are tarnishing the image of humanity completely, and this is the only way forward. Well, actually, to be honest, there should be other interventions first. Scholars in this country, scholars around the world, they should unite too, and they are making efforts currently as well, to actually voice out and let that message be heard across every single other Islamic country that they do not follow the traditional Islam, and they are pretty much almost out of the fold of Islam completely. They are not Muslims, okay? So that is the message we need to get across to them, and to almost to cut off ties completely, so that our youth understand that they have nothing to do with Islam. Second of all, social media, monitoring of that, funding organisations, they need to be monitored. Okay, military action is probably the last resort, but the only problem with that, like you see in Iraq, in Libya, that there is indiscriminate killings. Once you have a military action, there will be civilian casualties. And the civilian casualties also means that those people that have gone on, we're assuming on the basis of humanitarian grounds, when they realise that actually they've gone there and it's a wrong setup, they were sold it wrong, and they want to retreat from there should be something there for them to fall back on. If the government decides to put up a base somewhere and say, look, those of you who can come out, or help them to come out and withdraw from themselves, just like if there was a rapist in society, he'll have a probation period, he'll be sentenced, but he'll be allowed to come back in. There is a process of rehabilitation. If there is a criminal in society, there is a process of rehabilitation. Why isn't there a process of rehabilitation for these young individuals which have gone maybe for the good intentions, but they need some support? So military action you know, it's a very difficult decision, but on a ground level first, scholars, you know, media, cutting off all the oxygen supply to them so they don't get the attention that they're wanting. This mass murdering, chopping off their heads, slaughtering them, they only do that to actually gain publicity. So we should not give them that publicity, because then they feel as if, you know, they've lost the game then. You know, so entirely military action is not the only thing, okay? It is a last resort, but other strategies need to be put in place first.
I completely agree with Brother Raza about the military action. That should be the last resort. The history, the witness that any military action happened in this world, people have faced the consequences. That may be a solution for the short term, but it's not a long-term solution. It's got to be, the people got to be educated. They should be told about the things they've been told to do, ISIS told to do is wrong. You have different platforms. Raza mentioned the platforms. People should be guided, advised, and obviously as a society, that's our responsibility to share the information within the families, within the social circles, within our different platforms, wherever we have got as people, we think. And then, bear in your mind when you do airstrike to any country or any city, any place, there should be some casualties with innocent people there. There are a lot of people who have been made hostages by ISIS. They don't want to be there. They want to get out of it, but they're trapped and they can't really come out of it. So when you do the airstrike or military actions, it's going to cost so much mess, and then probably 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, you face some consequences really, really strong that you won't be able to probably clear the mess. I mean, what happened in Afghanistan? The consequences there now. Iraq is another example for that. I mean, and then if you keep on doing these things as a second or third option, I don't think it's going to work that high.
You then just get another group formed, don't you?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
another
ISIS,
group
was
form
ISIS.
of that.
There was no ISIS.
In essence, what it is, I mean, by allowing for military action to go in first, it'd be dangerous because we don't actually know why the youngsters are going out there in the first place. So we don't know how they've been tricked, you know, how they've been cajoled, manipulated, whatever you want to call it, how and why they've gone out there. It could be that, you know, there's a gun to their head, and that's why, you know, they haven't got a choice. Because these youths that are going out there, they come from, their parents are left shocked, surprised, completely bewildered by their decision to go out there. And surely some investigation needs to be carried out first as to how are these youngsters being made to go out there? What is luring them out there? So more work needs to be, you know, targeted on that end. So whether you need like a ground force team, whatever, out there first to try and also work out, well, are there people who want to get out? Or have they realized they made a mistake by coming out here? And are they afraid of actually coming back here because they're worried then of being labeled a terrorist and then imprisoned, you know, knowing that there's no hope for them when they come back even? You know, so it's about really finding out first of all how it happened and what we can do to support those who have gone out there.
We need to tackle this, or need to set up initiatives around the country so that we combat this, whether it's on roadshows or different kind of programs and festivals that we create, where we have to educate on this growing concern and really give out the right message of what true traditional Islam is. And our British values are also mimicked within that.
I think that the future is positive. I mean, personally for myself, it just made me think about my actions more. Every action I want to portray myself as a good person and as a good Muslim as well. So, you know, whether that is, you know, running campaigns in schools, you know, to go out to people. So we ran a campaign, our Islamic Society ran a campaign to go out and help the homeless. We just went out in the city and just handed food to homeless people. Simple actions like that we can portray, which will really give us a positive light and also, you know, show to the world that we're not a group to be feared. We're a group to, you know, embrace us and, you know, to really integrate with the society. We are British and we enjoy that, and we want to integrate with other faiths and other cultures, and we're not afraid to do so. We haven't got anything to hide.
So I think for positives going forward, it's about using social media, highlighting that we're a traditional Islam, they're not even considered Muslims, and also working cohesively with the community, you know, being yourself as a Muslim in itself and feeling comfortable within your own community should be enough for non-Muslims to be able to see actually that's not the real Islam?
I think the future for all this negativity is actually bright. I think the future will come from the youth. Hopefully, in future we can have more interfaith discussions, we can move forward on this, and we just need more positivity in this world, and I think people should smile.
I think what has already come out of it is that there have been a lot of positive actions. Lots of people from different faith groups have come forward, to show their support, saying that they recognise that actually this is not what Islam is about, and they're aware of that. And it does come back to the education. We're all children of Adam at the end of the day, and that's what Islam is about. True traditional Islam is having respect for all of God's creations.